Hey, what's up you guys? Welcome back. I feel like I should have an intro now because apparently I'm full-time teacher, also part-time YouTuber with these videos. Although I'll let you know that my YouTube skills have not improved in the past week. These are really just for updates, and then I don't want to post to YouTube ever again. So let's get into a couple housekeeping things and then we'll get into the expectations for the week. People are continuing to ask for updates via video because they feel like hearing expectations on video is easier, and that's fantastic. We'll keep going with that, but again, I'm not a YouTuber, so go easy. Actually, hit that like button and subscribe, and yeah, let's have this community really grow. That's a joke, you don't have to do that. Happy belated birthday, if you didn't read in the message, to Emma Simon. Your birthday was April Fool's Day, so this is not a joke. Happy birthday to you. And then also to Brady, happy birthday. Yours is on the 2nd. I hope you had a great birthday at home and that you had a little bit of time to celebrate yourselves. Just some feedback from last week to start off. There was a question, actually quite a few questions, about whether we'd be using Zoom or Microsoft Teams or something like that to be able to chat as a class or share our work. I have spoken to admin about that, and we're going back and forth about the safest way to do that, both for you guys and for me. There's a lot of concerns about people's video being on and microphones and other people from outside being able to access private conversations. So not yet, but we're talking about it. So that's on my radar. Don't worry about that. Just before I get into the expectations, this week I'm including a suggested breakdown to help you pace for the week. Some people wrote in the Google form from last week that they're having a tough time knowing how to split up our work for our course for the week. So I have included a calendar. You can choose to follow that pacing, or you can choose to do whatever works for you. It's just a suggestion to help those that asked. Your expectations for this week are to fill out the Google form, to participate in the discussions on D2L, to record in your daily journals for the week, and to do section 2 of an assignment. And I'm going to give a breakdown of each of those things next. So expectation number 1 is to do your Google form. This is the first thing that you're going to do every week that we're working online, and it's important for me because I can check in to see if you have any questions. I can get feedback from you guys on how the work went from the previous week, and it's the first thing that I will look before I call home if I have any concerns. I will look to see if you had any questions that I didn't address, and that might be why something wasn't handed in, or if you had questions from the previous week, I will email you separately about that. I responded to all of the concerns from last week that people wrote in separate emails. So if you're looking for the answer to the question that you asked, I sent it to your Wellington email. So you got to log on there and you got to check. It's really important to still be checking your emails. Your discussion is a little bit different this week. Instead of 3 separate questions, I have already pre-put you into groups, so when you open your discussion on D2L, you'll already be in a group. What I'm going to ask you to do is to share one entry from last week, so that's from April 6th to 9th, from your gratitude journal with your group. And so once you've shared the thing that you're grateful for, you're going to respond to each of your group mates and say how you feel about reading their gratitude entry and your thoughts on it, or any comments that you might have. And for my modified students, you know who you are because we had phone conversations last week, you are going to share your entry from April 6th to 9th, and you are going to respond to one of your group mates' posts. Okay, so you can respond to all of them if you have time and that works for you, but your expectation is to only reply to one group mate's post. Your discussion is absolutely part of your class participation and your grade. So those of you that didn't get around to posting in the discussion last week, or those of you that had a nice 1-sentence reply, I would say that's not meeting expectations, especially because it was clearly laid out that it should be 2 to 3 sentences. So it's important to follow the instructions of what you're asked to do in the discussion, manage your thread, and then to use your netiquette, like we talked about last week. If you have questions about netiquette, see our video from last week. Some feedback from the discussions last week before we move on to the other expectations of this week. Question 1, we had a couple fantastic threads. One of them was Nathan. He asked this great question about, are we using Zoom? And then we had Logan chime in, and then Jake LeBlanc chime in, and then Dre chimed in too. What I'm gonna get you guys to change is in those discussions. So if Nathan is the one that posted the initial thread and Logan replies, so he starts a new thread, if Jake agrees with what Logan's saying, he's actually gonna click reply to Logan's thread, or Logan's post, sorry, and he's gonna say, hey Logan, I agree, and then continue on with his new thought, okay? It's so that you can see the conversation flowing as opposed to each person having a new post. So it looks more like a conversation. This is the same. There's also a question 1 thread between Brady, who said that he thought that being in class is better than being at home. Then we had Jake Johnson reply, then Jeremy replying, and Evan replying. You don't each have to have separate threads. You can reply to each other and just keep that thread going. You'll see that it will indent each time as the conversation gets built on. I want to give feedback just to 2 other great examples of discussion posts. Last week we had Haley. She did a discussion about and talked about in question 2 how people aren't taking the suggestions of social distancing seriously. Then we had Gwen reply the way, like, she started a new thread and replied, and then she agreed and asked a question to Haley, and then we had Haley reply to that question. As you go forward, and because you are the owner of that thread, Haley did reply to Gwen's question, but everybody else should know as well that you should be checking in on your thread throughout the week if people might have questions to what you originally posted. The last one that I really want to touch on was Brock's post for question 2. He shared a fantastic multi-dimensional response, I'd say. He talked about his effect on him and his family. He then talked about how he feels about what's going on, and then he also added what he's been up to. And so he hit all points of the question and really shared a great response. So I want to see more of that work. That's fantastic, Brock. And discussions from past weeks will stay up. So if you want to see any of the responses that people gave or that I'm talking about, feel free to go into those discussions, and you should still be able to see them after the submission date has closed. You should be able to look back on them. So the third expectation this week is to continue writing daily in your gratitude journals. A little bit of feedback on this. The first is, and most of you have, the first thing is that you should have filled in your posts from March 23rd to April 3rd as well, and then you're continuing for this past week too. So all those ones we did in the 2 weeks after the March break, you need to add to your online gratitude journal, whether that's by taking a photo of that work and submitting it that way and just adding it to the Google slide, that's fine, or you're retyping them out. Those ones don't need to have a visual with them because we've started adding visuals April 6th, but you still need to have those posts in there. So unless you're modified, and I've spoken to you about how you don't have to have those 2 weeks, everyone else needs to have those 2 weeks of gratitude journals on their online gratitude journal. Overwhelmingly though, the gratitude journals look great. I'm very proud of you for setting those up, for sharing them with me. The visuals are fantastic that people are adding. I'm excited for you guys to share them with each other. And then the one thing that I was a little confused of was I was checking in on some people's gratitude journals that had shared them with me on Tuesday and Wednesday, and they had already filled in Thursdays, and it wasn't Thursday yet. So I've given this feedback before in class, and I'm going to again. Part of the assignment is writing a piece of gratitude each day for that day and not working ahead, okay? important to follow instructions and to take feedback, okay? Because we're all growing and learning. So please do not work ahead on your gratitude journal. The final expectation for this week is you are going to do slide 2, which is the slide brainstorm for your music and time of COVID-19 assignment. Okay, so this assignment is going to take a few weeks to complete, and there's going to be running due dates, so that by the end of this week, so by Friday, April, let me get my calendar, Friday, April 17th, you need to have your slide 2 done on that assignment, okay? And I'm going to attach a screencastify to this week's expectations to show you how to transfer the brainstorm that I had on the assignment outline onto your Google Slides. The goal of this assignment is to take some of the anxiety and the worry that we have of this time and find a creative outlet for it, which in this assignment will be looking through our music library and looking at some of the songs that we like to listen to and trying to find one that we can focus on that relieves some of our stress during this time. So at the end of the assignment, it's going to look like this. You'll have an album cover slide, and it'll have your title for your album and a graphic on there and your name and the course code and the date that you've submitted it. Your second slide is going to show your brainstorm, which you're working on this week, and what that's going to look like is songs that are your favorites, and then narrowing it down to pick your top 3 that are really helping you get through this tough time, and then narrowing it down to just one that you'll share a reflection on. And then in your slide 3, you're going to insert the music video or the recording. Those of you that feel like you might be able to create your own music, you might decide to record something and share it. And then the final slide will be the reflection of the song that you've chosen. So you're going to provide some of the lyrics, and you're going to explain why you chose that song and why it's meaningful to you and how it provides you comfort. As you are brainstorming, I really need to emphasize this before you start this whole project. You need to choose a song that is appropriate. Okay, I'm going to say that again. You need to choose a song that is appropriate. It should not have any foul language in it. If it does, find a clean version. The music video should also have no visuals that are inappropriate in it, okay? It's something that if I were to sit down and share your work in a room with you and your parents or guardians and myself and the principals at the school, you'd be happy to show your work with us, okay? Not that you'd be ashamed of what song you chose, all right? So important. Before you brainstorm, find appropriate music. And that brings us to the end of this week's video. This still very much is a transition period of getting used to online learning. So please reach out if you have any questions. You guys know my email, but again, it's claire.endicott@wellingtoncdsb.ca. Really anything, any question, I'm happy to help, or any concern you might have. I'll try to work with you and we'll find a solution that works for both of us. And I think that just about covers everything. If you've made it to this point in the video, you got a very special surprise. I will tell you who my celebrity inspiration was for the outfit that I chose today. This might help give you a hint as you're thinking right now who my inspiration was. No, it's not Steve Jobs, although I also look like Steve Jobs right now. This will help you kind of bring it together. I'm also wearing jeans, which is a very important hint, okay? Yeah, so I look like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson today. Yeah, that was the goal. Have a fantastic week. I hope that either made you cringe or laugh, and we'll talk next week.